Hey there everybody, welcome to the assembly line. We're just going to crack open the Corregidor Jurisdictional command and check out the pieces before cleaning them up and assembling them. So yeah, just to crack on then. Tackling these guys first because, well, a little bit out of practice, and I decided these ones are the least important to me, so these are the ones I'll do first. Come with a box which is actually useful for storing minutes in later. I thought it was going to come with decals, but it don't. So yeah, each miniature comes in its own bag. Comes with a set of slaughter bases. But I'm not using the slaughter bases. I actually have custom made bases. And now I am going to debate exactly which ones to deal with first, and how to go about separating them from their bases, because I think I'm going to want to do that before painting them. So here is one of the Nomad bases I'm going to be using, hence I'm going to be removing them. And this is the first wildcat. As you can see what I'm doing, I'm just getting out the pieces. Everybody should be familiar with all this. Metal miniatures. I love metal miniatures. This used to be all you could get once upon a time. Didn't have plastics or anything. And the thing to do is just to look at them very carefully, check for flash lines, and then I'm actually using kind of an old, slightly battered and worn scalpel. I just cleaned up the scalpel blade so it's got clean edges. And I'm just going to remove any flash lines which are left. Or to be quite honest with you, these are pretty immaculate models. There's just a little bit flash line, but it's not even flash really, it's just a ever so slight raising. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. I'm trying to keep it all in shot. The key thing I'm doing is I'm trying to decide which foot's going to be. Okay, so I'm just going to make the initial incision. It's going to go on the base, so I'm going to have to remove this bit which is for the slaughter base. And yeah, wildcat, removing of base, dangerous. Okay, bit of trepidation at this, to be quite honest with you. It's a white metal alloy, I think, because unfortunately lead got banned. Lead was the most wonderful thing miniatures were ever made out of, because it's a soft, supple metal. It's very easy to cut through. It's very easy to sculpt, in fact. So it meant that if you were doing conversions, if any of you remember the original GW ranges of Space Marines, which you could, you could buy several Space Marines in a blister pack for a couple of quid, and they were metal, which takes me back to the late 80s, early 90s, I suppose. But nowadays, not so easy. So what I'm trying to do, I'm just trying to make careful incisions so that I come underneath the foot and I don't actually cut into the miniature. I would rather I cut slightly into the slaughter base piece, and I can always clean it up. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to epoxy these onto the acrylic bases. Hope you can see, just cutting underneath. Literally, if there's a line on the sole of the boot, if I can cut this cleanly enough, then all will be well. Just gonna okay, now I'm just going to take them all off. So I will clean them all up and I'll just show you the end product. Okay, so the next wildcat, it's again incredibly clean. I'm not going to show the whole thing. I was just going to point out that actually there's just a couple of flash lines on the legs, but they're incredibly fine and just need an ever so light scraping. And again, very minimal. The only unfortunate thing about these is in some respects it can be difficult to discern the difference between the actual barrel tip of the weapon and the flash, which is sticking off. So there's the end of the barrel tip is here. The flash looks very similar, so just be careful if you're buying these miniatures when you're cleaning them up. Don't be hasty, take your time. Okay, just broke my scalpel. It's fine, I have other blades, but moral of the story is don't use scalpels for cutting through metal, people. Use a more rigid blade. I'm going to just switch over to a penknife blade, I think, which I will show you in a moment. Yeah, I know it's a bit ad hoc, but I'm just switching over to this penknife blade, just using a short blade off penknife. Keep it reasonably sharp, mostly because the blade's a bit stronger or less likely to break than a craft knife blade when cutting through metal. I do prefer to cut because there's less wastage. If you saw, the saw blade will take a depth out of the material, and so personally I prefer a blade. You probably don't agree, but what the hell. And you know you've done a good job in cutting them off the base for the slaughter base when they stand up by themselves. Look, I think that's pretty cool. Also, goes to show well-designed miniatures where the poses are actually balanced. I can't quite get this guy to balance, but he is in a bit more of an awkward pose. I'm going to play about a bit and see if I can get everybody to stand up by the time I'm done, so hopefully that'll work out. Okay, so I've got a couple of guys who actually stand up now, so I'm going to try and keep on doing it standing up. I've also swapped over to another kind of scalpel with a chunkier blade. It's actually much better for cutting through. Pen knives are useful, especially when you need something that's not going to snap, but that's much sharper, so it's much more useful at the end of the day. Also, you can just see, like, just to give you an idea, that's hopefully what they're going to look like stood on their bases. And actually, I was slightly worried, but no, they look really cool. I need to make the paint job live up to the basing, which is going to be hard work. But you can see, like, on the base as well, there's the compass points, so that you can clearly see where your line of sight and fire arcs are. Yeah, so I'm just going to keep on cleaning up, but that's all the Wildcats done. This guy, he was the hardest one to clean up so far. He had a bit of flash around his gun, but it's the first one that's had any flash at all, and just some of the more awkward bits, like I don't know if you can even see, but on the arms there's a sort of lump at the back, and it's the wrong arm. There's this lump at the back here, which is actually it was part of the channel for letting the metal in and out of the cast, but or the mould. And I just had to cut in a bit just to try and tie it in, and I kind of scratched it up a bit, but maybe that'll just end up as battle damage. Probably can't see this very clearly, but tiny little fingers, and I'm just gonna clean them up, remove the flash, and just try and improve the line just at the very tip of the fingers. Hopefully give it a little bit more definition so it'll be a bit easier to paint. This is on the Aguaciel Hacker, just so you knows. Again, incredibly clean miniature, so much easier to deal with just one arm to assemble. But man, these are beautiful. Okay, so that's the Aguaciel cleaned up. Well, that's the Hacker anyway. So we just got the Intruder. We're doing a Hellcat last because I think there's going to be most to do. Again, the Intruder, very, very clean. Minimal amounts of flash. In fact, the worst bit of flash I think was it on this dude? I think it was. No, it was in the curve. It was in this curve and on this rifle. And on this rifle, bit of flash across the top edge of the weapon, but you know, they're amazingly clean miniatures. There's very little clean up work to do. So yeah, I'll come back as soon as I've got this guy cleaned up and cut off the base. Okay, so here you go. 4 out of 5 are standing upright. Kind of a bit disappointed that I managed to get the first one to stand upright, but how? Just keep on going. It's got the Hellcat to go. One thing that has been a little bit of a beast is the hand on the intruder. Just need a little bit of cleaning up, cutting between the fingers a little bit as well. But overall, can't really complain. True 28mm, very difficult to cast in, I imagine. It's very detailed, and these miniatures are super detailed. They look like something straight out of an anime. So, just got the Hellcat to go on with. This is going to be the hardest one to clean up, having the most pieces, and yeah, I will get back to you once I've cleaned this one up. There's no obvious flash. Yeah, okay, there's lots of little spikes and everything, but that's not really flash. Flash is where the mould doesn't quite come together, and so it creates seams and you get little edges. So the guys who actually build the moulds and everything at Course Belly, they do a really stunning job. But yeah, I'll get back to you as soon as I've done the Hellcat. Here's the Hellcat all cleaned up. Hardest part to do was this leg. Can't really see anymore because it's cleaned up, but the heel actually had a channel directly attached to it, so I actually had to carefully kind of in part shape the heel when I was cutting away the metal and cleaning it up. Other than that, really clean. The knife is a bit of a pain because you need to straighten it. It was slightly wonky at first, but also when you cut the flash off, that bends the knife blade a bit, so you've got to carefully make sure everything's aligned before assembly. So next thing is I'm just going to give everything a quick wash in soapy water and then rinse it clean, dry it, and then I'm going to super glue it, because I think epoxy is going to be too much of a nuisance for actually assembling these things. We'll have to use epoxy to attach them to the base though, because otherwise it's a bit delicate. Okay, so I'll get back to you once I've cleaned these guys up. I'll be just using, washing up liquid, hot water, and it's just to remove any residual release agents which are used for removing stuff from the mould. They coat it with a good layer of grease basically to make it so that the miniatures come out. And this release agent will prevent super glue from working properly, and I really don't want to mess this up, so let's get this right and do it properly. All cleaned up now, left them to dry for a bit. Well, dried them, then left them to dry for a bit. And I changed my mind again. I decided what I'm going to do is I am going to use epoxy. And so I've got a 2-part epoxy. I'm using Unibond. It's a 1-minute drying 2-part epoxy. And I've got one, I'm not quite sure which is the hardening agent and which is the fixing agent, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to use a cocktail stick. I'm going to mix a little bit at a time because I don't really want to waste any either. As long as it's not mixed, it shouldn't set. That's the theory I'm working to. So I'm just going to take a little bit and just work it in to the edge of the other blob. Hopefully I'm using as equal parts as possible. And I'm just going to use that. I'm using the cocktail sticks to apply it to where I want it. And removing excess because I don't want it to squidge. It smells, which is a good sign because it means that the agents have mixed correctly. And now I've already checked the position on the arms, and the miniature actually goes together very well. It's a very clean fit. So all I should have to do is let the miniature guide and then just hold it together. And this is going to be terribly dull. So I'm just going to stop the recording at this point. So just to show you, I'm going to hold it. I'm going to hold it for about a minute. You don't want to see that, so I'll show you it once it's done. Okay, so it turns out that if you're using epoxy, the runnier side is used as the setting agent, but the thicker side is the most important bit, and that's actually what binds everything together. So just bear this in mind. Now most of these are stuck pretty firmly. Where I've got the mix right, they're incredibly strong. Where the mix is not quite right, not quite so strong. So I'm just going to have to rebond some of these, and I will be back with you momentarily. So after much humming and hawing and fighting with epoxy, I did resort to using super glue. I'm going to use epoxy for mounting them on their bases, but getting the mix right, mixing it outside of the tube system that it comes in, has proved to be a real pain in the ass. Some of them still balance. The intruder is actually entirely put together with epoxy, and he's really strong, so when you get the mix right with the epoxy, it comes out real good. Just so you can see, this is there's a Hellcat. If you can see, yeah, just knock over the intruder. But yeah, she's come up beautiful. Got the gun slightly tipped further forward than in the pictures, but I'd like to have a slight bit of variety. You don't want to be exactly the same as everybody else. Very difficult when they're precast models though, and they're cast in poses which are pretty fixed, unlike sort of typical plastics. But yeah, so next stage is going to be painting, so I'll undercoat, and the next time you'll see them, they should be under the painting table. Cheers everybody, take care.